CSS lesson number 4 is about working with images and adding filters to images through some CSS coding. This is one where the handout might be kind of helpful because you're going to do 8 different filters and they are all listed on here. There's a link to some code and I'm going to show you what it looks like here in just a second. There's not a lot of code there, but we're going to do some things to it. And you're going to be using a blur filter and a sepia filter, and they're all listed here on this handout. So this is one day where pulling up the handout and having it open in a tab might be kind of helpful, could be useful, keep you on track a little bit. But I'm going to show you how to do it. So I'm going to get over here. There'll be a link for the code on Google Classroom. When you click the link and you do your view code and remix and rename and all that kind of stuff, this is what it will look like. It's not much. It is the only thing in the HTML, you're looking at it right now, is an image tag. It says source equals cabin.jpg. The width is 500 pixels, and that's it. This cabin picture is over in the assets panel. Now, here's the thing, and this is on the handout. If you really want to, you could go grab a different picture off of the internet. It has to be school appropriate, and you could add image and upload it into this, into this asset panel. And you could switch this out here and it could be a different picture. It doesn't have to be this picture. I just picked a picture that is actually kind of random, right? We just needed a picture to work with, and so this is what I picked. And if you don't want to use it, then go get something different. But I wouldn't do a different picture for every filter. That would just take extra time that you don't need to take. Let's look at what you're going to do though. All right, so on this first time, here's how I would do this. You kind of got to get in a rhythm. The first one, if you look at the handout, is going to be a blur filter. So I would come up here. I would just go ahead and hit remix and rename. And I'm going to take all of this out up here and just put blur and save that. All right, I'm going to call it, because you're going to have to turn in the links to all of these, and so it could be helpful to have them named. I'm going to call this blur. I'm going to go over to, I need to pull this back over now again so we can see it better, and I'm going to go over to the style.css page, and it really doesn't have a whole lot on it, but here's what you're going to do. You're going to add a rule for an image tag. So you start off with img. You establish a set of curly braces, and we're only going to play with one thing. Here it is, filter colon. Now when you go filter colon, it has a list of, we're not going to do all of them, but it has a list of possible filters, and the first one that we're going to do here is blur. You see it on there, and so I'm just going to click on blur, but we have to enter some information for blur. It can't just do it on its own, and it works in pixels. The blur works in pixels. So if I say 10px and then I look over there at that picture, look what happened. It got pretty blurry. So you could set the blur to whatever you feel like you want. It's measured in pixels. Whatever you want to do on it, you ought to put the semicolon at the end, get in the habit of doing that, but that's really it. We have just applied a blur to the picture. Cool. So what I would recommend you do here, I'm going to hit save and refresh. Way over on the right hand side, you may not be able to see it in this movie window, but way over on the right hand side of code.org, I'm going to hit save and refresh. Okay. Then I'm going to come along and I'm going to remix this, and I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to move on to our second filter. We've seen what blur does, so I'm going to move on to the second filter. How are you going to know what the second filter is? Look at the handout, right? The second filter is sepia, and I'm going to name it sepia, right? I hit remix, and I'm going to rename it, and I'll save that. And again, I'm going to try to keep remembering to pull this picture over. It's still sitting here all blurred. Right? I'll go back to my style.css, and I'm just going to backspace out what I had there, because now I want to do something different. Now I want to come along here and say, okay, filter sepia. Okay. Now sepia works with a percentage. Percentages, as you may know, go from 0 to 100. So by default, it comes up doing some sepia work on there, but like if I put in 5%, you actually put the percent sign in there. So that's not very much. It's not doing much of that sepia effect to the picture because I only put it at 5%. But let's say I put it at 50%, and you can see what it does there, right? It altered the picture. If you look at it, if I were to take that sepia filter off, it would not look like that. But it has made a visual effect on the picture. And just one more test here, I'll run it at like 75%. And I'm not going to care exactly what percentage you use. Do whatever you want, right? That's that you set it at whatever you want. All right, so the sepia filter's done, right? So I'm going to hit refresh and save there, and that's just mostly to save it. I just want to make sure that it has been saved that way, right? Now, as you do these, and I'll show you, if you go over here on the right-hand side and go to My Projects, you'll see that you could be attaching you could do share and attach the links as you go if you want to. But look, over here on My Projects, right? See this one, there's blur and there's sepia, and that's why I'm remixing and renaming every time, saving and remixing and renaming every time I do it, because I want, I want to keep all of them, because eventually, you gotta submit these things. You have to pop here, to submit your blur thing. I'd have to click on that blur, and I'd have to go to share, and I'd have to get that link and go put that link on Google Classroom. You're going to have to turn in like 8 links today. Ooh, what a slave driver I am. And if you need help with that, email me or whatever, but it's doable. You can turn in 8 links. You can manage it. All right, I'm going to go back to the sepia one here and just kind of pick up where I left off. All right, I just did sepia. So I'm going to come along here. I'm going to hit remix, and I'm going to hit rename. And what are we doing next? I'm going to try to go really fast. We're doing drop shadow. Some of them, you kind of need to know some things, all right? Drop shadow is our next one. So on the CSS, and I'm going to pull my picture over here, get it into the window better. So on the CSS page here, where I'm going to take out this sepia filter, we'll go colon, and it's drop shadow. It's down there. You see it, drop dash shadow. Now here's how it works. Now there's an X offset, a Y offset, a blur, and a color. So I'm going to use a lot of 10s here. I'm going to go 10 pixels for the X offset. Don't worry, nothing's happening yet. Stick with me. Hit the space bar. 10 pixels again for the Y offset. I didn't hit a 10 there though, sorry. That's better, all right. And now if you look at the picture, you're starting to see it. I'm going to do a 10 pixel blur, and these don't have to be 10s. I'm using this as an example. And then you could throw in a color, green. All right, so what I've got here is the X offset is 10, the Y offset is 10, the blur is 10, and the color is green. But play with the numbers and play with the color. You should get a shadow. There's a shadow under the picture. Cool. All right. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to hit refresh and save, and that's going to save my drop shadow version of this. I'll hit remix. I'll hit rename. I'm getting in a hurry here. I'll hit rename, and our next one is grayscale. All right. Remember, these are all on the handout. I'm going to pull my picture over in range here where we can see it. I'm going to go to the style.css, and I'm going to take out all of that drop shadow stuff that I had in from the previous one. And I'll go colon, and we're going grayscale. All right, now grayscale works on a percentage. And you can kind of see what it's doing, but if I set it at like 20%, it takes out some of the color of the picture, but you can still see some color in the picture. And again, this is going to depend on just what you want. If I set that at like 80%, it looks much more gray than it did a moment ago. So, when you're happy with the way it looks, you've got it. You can come over here, you can hit the refresh and save, and again, that's mostly just to save it, just to make sure it's saved. And then I'll come over here and I'll hit remix, and I'll hit rename. And which one are we doing after grayscale? We're doing hue rotate. All right, save that. I'll pull my picture over in range here, go to style.css. Let's take out our grayscale information. I hope you're getting the rhythm here. Filter, colon, and this is going to be hue dash rotate. Now this one's a little bit weird. It's kind of strange. It works on degrees in a circle, actually. You can enter anything from 0 to 360 and just play around with it until, like, if I go 230, confirming there, what you have to do with it's degrees in a circle. So you type 230 and you go DEG right after it, DEG. And in this case, I got a kind of a greenish look to the sky, at least, and the windows look real purple. But I could back that out and try something different if I wanted to. What if I did, let's go 36 DEG, anything between 0 and 360, I guess, is the DEG. All right, and that when you do 360 degrees, it doesn't look too much different than the original. But you can just kind of find something in there that you feel like, okay, I'm good. Right, and that one doesn't look too bad. We're just looking at effects that you can apply to an image by using CSS filters, right? So this is hue and rotate, works on degrees between 0 and 360. I'm going to refresh and save that. And then I can come over, once you do refresh and save, you can come over and hit remix, you can come over and hit rename, and you can just get it all set for your next one. The next one is saturate. All right, and I'm going to save that. I'll pull my picture over, go back to the style.css. Let's take out our hue and rotate. And if you're at home watching this movie and you feel like, well, okay, I see how this is all going to work, and I got the handout to help me, then go for it. I'm going to finish these, but if you don't need, if you don't need the help to get it right, then you're good. But if you need the help to get it right, then watch. Saturate works on percentages, so if I say 50%, I get that kind of result right there. But you'll get you'll see, if I go like 100%, let's do that. Look at that. If I just put 100 in there, that's kind of crazy. If I just, maybe we don't need the percent sign. If I go 50, if I go 10, if I go 5, right? So you can scale it however you want to scale it, and maybe you don't need the percent sign. I'm experimenting with things. Leave that percent sign off if that works better. I do think it's a good idea to get in the habit of putting the semicolon at the end of the sentence. Sometimes you get away with it not having it, but not always. All right, so I'm going to refresh and save on that. I'm going to come over and do remix and rename. We're going to look at our next one after saturate. It's contrast, so CONTRAST. Contrast is what we're doing. I'll save that. And I'm just trying to get into the rhythm here. Like I said, if you're working from home and you don't need to see the rest of this movie, then don't. Right? If you got it, you got it. I'll go filter, we're doing contrast. Most of the rest of these that we're going to be doing, they do work, and we're almost done, but they do work on percentages. All right, so contrast works like, it's a percentage, so if I say 50% contrast, see what I get there? All right, let's go 20%, I get that. Let's blow it out to 100%, see what we get. Pretty dramatic, right? And I don't know if you like the effect. That's not necessarily the point that you like everything that we do here, but 9%. Where do you start to really see it? 15%, 25%. Yeah, all right. All right. So anyway, go down there and I'll add that semicolon, and I'm going to do a refresh and save there because I don't think I was getting my full effect there. Now I want to play with it some more. Golly, do this to me. Let's go 20%. All right, so yeah, this is acting a little bit better now. That's a 20% contrast. That's a 70% contrast right there. Here's an 80% contrast. All right, anyway, there we go. Contrast is done. I'm going to hit a refresh and save. And the last one we're going to do is called an invert. So I'm going to remix, I'm going to rename, and I'm going to call this one invert. I-N-V-E-R-T. Save that. Bring my picture over into our window so we can see it a little bit better. Go to the CSS. Let's take out the contrast information. And once again, invert works on percentages. It's on the list, and it works on percentages. To begin with, it does that, but if I set that to like 10%, it's a much less dramatic effect, right? I'm going to stick a semicolon, then I'll go back and play with the numbers. All right, so what if I up that to like 30%? If I go like 70%, wow, look at what we're getting there. It's kind of like a negative image. I don't know if anybody remembers film negatives at all, if you ever saw a film negative, but that's kind of what we've got there. All right, so that's the invert one, right? Cool. Refresh and save on that just to make sure. The big thing there is just to make sure it's saved. Now, like I said, if you're wondering, so how are we going to turn these in? Well, that's going to take a little bit of work, but if I go up here to where my name is and I go to My Projects, I should now see, look, blur, sepia, drop shadow, grayscale, hue and rotate, saturate, contrast, they're all there. All of them are there. So when it's time to turn them in, I could do it this way. I could go back to the blur thing. I could hit the share button. I could copy the link, go over to it, have another tab open on Google Classroom, go add that link right to the assignment, and then I could go back to My Projects, and that was blur, so I could go to sepia, and I could hit the share button, and I could take that link, copy it, go back over to Google Classroom, hit that add button. You're just attaching links is all you're doing. So just hit that add button and attach another link, and you're going to wind up sending me like 8 links, which is okay. I don't care. It's fine. It's perfect, right? So these will all be listed on, if you go, like I said, I've said it more than once, if you go to where you see your name in the top right, go to My Projects, and they will all be listed there if you did it correctly, right? If you did like a refresh and save at the beginning of each one and you named them, they're all right there. Okay. Hey, let's give it a ride.